Hi everyone, this is Karen Whitaker with the League of American Bicyclists. There we go. Hi everyone, this is Karen Whitaker with the League of American Bicyclists. Thank you for joining me for this webinar on the new Congress, new transportation bill, and preparing for Lobby Day. Tonight, what I'd like to talk about is first give you a little bit of an update on what's happening in Congress. This is a new Congress, what's happening with transportation. Then talk about what Summit Lobby Day is, how to prepare, what to expect, and then some Q&A. There will be an Ask seminar next Monday where we'll talk about the actual bills we'll be lobbying on at the summit. So, the new Congress. We have over 70 new members of Congress, 24 of which are on the House Transportation Committee. So they are more than a third of the Transportation Committee. That means that while they may have thought of infrastructure as a political issue, they're just learning how the transportation bill works, and they probably haven't thought about biking and walking as political issues or things that they would deal with at the federal level. So this is a great opportunity to educate them when you come to the summit. We also have new leadership in the House committee and some changes lower down. So we think that there's a really great opportunity for folks to be at the summit, talk about why biking is important, and begin to educate members and staff. All these new members are colliding with a transportation reauthorization that's due in 2020. And as part of that reauthorization, we're also looking at a need for new funding. So we're going to hear a lot about that this Congress. We also have a president that really wants an infrastructure bill. He has thrown away his proposal from last year and is ready to start new. We also had Vice President Pence just tell the National Governors Association he promised an infrastructure bill this Congress. So we know that we have a very motivated administration. We have also seen this discussion on the Green New Deal and climate change. The House Transportation Committee just had a hearing on transportation and climate change. So there's a lot of new ideas, a lot of thinking going on about transportation on the Hill right now. To give you a little bit of that new leadership we were talking about, Chairman DeFazio from Oregon, he's the chairman of the House Transportation Committee. He has been on the committee since 1987, and he has been waiting for this job since then. He's also the only bike mechanic, or at least the first bike mechanic in Congress. His ranking member is Senator Sam Graves from Missouri, who has been somewhat supportive of biking and walking. He's not someone who's put his name out there, but has been supportive behind the scenes. Both of these men really want to find sustained long-term funding for transportation. That's been a goal. They're hoping to do that through the infrastructure package. So they're thinking of the infrastructure package as the funding piece, and then we'll do policy on reauthorization. Like I said, they're already holding hearings. They've really jumped into it. The other two folks on the screen are the chair and the ranking member of the Highway and Transit Subcommittee on the Transportation Committee. And they're important because when the transportation bill is written, when the surface transportation, meaning highways and transit, these are the members that will be in the room. These four and their staff will be the ones actually putting pen to paper to write the bill. And this is a great committee for us. Mr. DeFazio has always been supportive of biking and walking, has a particular soft spot for safe routes to school. We talked about Mr. Graves has been supportive, particularly in his district. Eleanor Holmes Norton, who's my delegate from DC, she has been incredibly supportive of biking and walking. She's very much a walker on her own. And then Mr. Rodney Davis from Illinois has been one of the most supportive Republicans on the House Transportation Committee. So these four really offer an opportunity for us to move policy forward. When we get to the Senate committee, we also have some really friendly faces in leadership. Chairman Barrasso is from Wyoming. He has a real interest in rural states and sees biking and walking sort of national parks as an economic development piece. Ranking member Mr. Carper from Delaware, also very supportive, has a real interest in safety and pedestrian and bicycle safety. On the Highway and Transit Subcommittee, we have Chairman Capito from West Virginia, very interested in recreation, the Rec Trails program, biking for recreation. And then, of course, we have the ranking member, Mr. Cardin from Maryland, who has been our champion in the Senate for transportation alternatives and biking and walking in general. So again, a good group. Now, the Senate is taking a very different approach. They're not thinking about an infrastructure bill. They are already moving on reauthorization. Chairman Barrasso wants to set the tone for reauthorization, so he wants his bill to come out first before the House comes out with theirs. So much so that he's already told his committee members, I need to know what your priorities are by next week, by the first week in March. After that, he's going to go to all of the Senate and say, I need to know what your priorities are for transportation this March, maybe April, but I need to know them right away. And so this is great timing for the National Bike Summit. A lot of stakeholders in transportation, they haven't really gotten their priorities together. They're getting caught flat-footed. So the members are also getting caught flat-footed a bit. The fact that we already have our priorities, that you all are going to be in Washington, in their offices saying, will you prioritize biking and walking? It's going to give us a leg up. So I'm very excited that the summit is coming up and that you'll be here to help with this. So let's talk about what Summit Lobby Day is. This is really, it's an opportunity for you to meet with your elected officials and advocate for biking. The most important thing you can do is just show up and say, I came all the way to Washington because I care about bicycling and walking, I care about safety, I care about access. And that will really, it will impress the members and the staff. Some things to know, the meetings will be set up for you. You should have up to 3 meetings, one with each senator, one with your representative. You'll get your schedule and meet others from your state at the summit on Monday. We'll give you some time to sit down and plan your meetings. We will give you talking points. We'll give you handouts. You'll be totally prepared. And on Monday, we'll have another webinar to discuss those issues. Tonight, we're really going to talk about how to prepare to lobby. Who you'll meet with? You'll meet with either the elected official and their staff or their staffer. In terms of who'll come with you to the meeting, at the Senate meetings, it's everyone from your state, so it may be a bigger group. But at the representatives meeting, sometimes it's a smaller group. Sometimes you'll be the only person in your district. If that happens and you're uncomfortable going alone, we will find someone to go with you. It may be a league staffer, it may be another advocate. But if you don't want to go alone, don't worry. We will make sure you don't have to. We sometimes get the question like, oh, I came all the way here. I want to meet with my senator. I totally understand that. You know, they're the famous one. But the staffers are the ones who really know the issue. Think of all the political issues there are out there. One member of Congress can't know all of that. That's why they hire staffers. The staffers will be in the meeting, even if the senator or representative is there. They're the ones who understand the issues. They're the ones who are going to take notes. They're the ones who knows how it fits in with the rest of the bill. So those members of Congress, they really rely on their staff. And we have had a strong success record from the staff meetings at past summits. So please don't feel disappointed that you met the staff. That's the person we want to build a longer term relationship with. So what's going to happen in that meeting? You'll meet the staff and the member. You'll all do a very short introduction, a sentence or two on who you are, why you're at the summit. We want to have a little discussion about why biking is important locally in your community. Is there a new project? Have you had a recent experience, particularly good experience? Maybe you've got a business owner in the group that can say how oh, ever since the bike infrastructure came in, we're getting more business. And then you want to ask for them, like, when's the last time you've been biking? Or, have you been out on this new trail in the district? Most people have a positive experience on biking, and it's good to tap into that. Then you want to talk about the policy ask, the reason we're there. And at the end of talking about the bill, you want to ask, will you co-sponsor this bill? Will you put bicycle safety in your list of priorities for transportation? Something like that. And then you always want to make a plan to follow up, simply asking, when should I follow up with you to get an answer on that? Something like that. So how can you prepare for your meeting before you come to the summit? Really, a good 15, 20 minutes of prep work can make all the difference in a successful meeting. If you don't know what district you're from or who your member of Congress is, you can go to this website, enter your zip code, and it will tell you who your member of Congress is. Then go to their website. Most of the addresses are lastname.house.gov. In the Senate, it would be lastname.senate.gov. If they have a common name like Smith or Davis, you might just have to Google them. And what you're looking for, if you want to know what committees they're on, maybe they're on the Transportation Committee, maybe they're on Ways and Means, which is the Tax Committee, or Appropriations, which helps with spending. Maybe they're on the Health Committee, so you know that they care about health. They may not be on a Transportation Committee, but the fact that they care about health could help us know how to tap into them. And then you can look at the legislation and issues. Looking around the site, you'll get a sense of what is most important to them. Look at their bio. Maybe they used to be a mayor. Mayors are often big supporters of biking and walking. Maybe they're a doctor and they care about health. Maybe they were a local business and they care about economic development. Spend some time thinking about what issue there is that you can connect to biking. Another place to go for research, votesmart.org. That will have their positions on a whole number of issues. We haven't had a lot of votes on transportation and infrastructure lately, but you can look up their speeches and look up transportation, look up infrastructure, and look for things that are supportive of biking, walking. Support for transit also often translates into support for biking and walking. See what's there that you can pull from. Try the local newspaper. These guys were just recently elected, so there may be some information from the recent past about where they stand on issues. But also know what their top issue is, even if it doesn't have to do with transportation. Because you want to find a way to connect. If there's something to thank them for, a vote you agree with, we haven't had many bills recently, but something you've seen in media that you would be supportive of. If you can find a thank you, that's helpful. Then what do they care about? Is it health? Is it climate? Is it social equity? Have they made comments on infrastructure and transportation? If you can't find anything specific, you can always talk about the economy because everybody cares about the economy. And talk about how walkable communities, bikeable communities are communities where people want to live and people want to visit. So there's a lot of economic development around that. But be creative. My mother-in-law has Alzheimer's, so I was talking to a member of Congress who cares about Alzheimer's, and we were able to talk about that and connect to the fact that physical activity is one of the best things you can do to prevent Alzheimer's, and how having safe and accessible infrastructure can really affect how much people in that community are gonna bike and walk and get that physical activity that's important for your brain health as well as your physical health. And you don't need to have, if you have 6 people going in your meeting, you don't need to have 6 stories, but if you can find, maybe talk amongst yourself, figure out what that best story is and lead with that. The other thing is to know a little bit about what local projects local biking and walking projects or a local case, if there was a road diet in your community, if there's a trail or a trail opening, um, anything like that, any safety benefits. If you have a quote from the mayor saying how they're, because you just became a bicycle friendly community or re-upped. If you have any quotes from local businesses, again, maybe they became a bicycle friendly business. Maybe they're supportive of a trail for those reasons. Anything that you can bring the benefits of biking to your district. Maybe there's a new project or something that's in the planning process. Talk about why that's going to be valuable, what the benefits will be. If you don't know what's new, your state has to report on what transportation alternative awards it gave the last year. Right now, we only have 2 years of data, 2016, 2017. But here's a website. You can go look at those, see what's interesting. Find something that you can talk about in that way. Again, news articles, anything, particularly if it's from a local paper, that can be really helpful. We will also supply you with some information about your state. And this data you can look up now. You can go to the Bike League website, bikeleague.org. This is the Bicycle Friendly States' most recent progress reports. So on the odd years, we're going to do the ranking. On the even years, we're going to do a progress report. A couple things to look at on these. On the first page, upper right-hand corner, bicycle-friendly actions. This is Iowa. They just did a bike plan. So you can say, hey, the state is investing in this. We just did this great bike plan. You can look at those actions, see, did something recently happen? Is there something you're working on in the state? There's also on the bottom left-hand corner, it's talking about the commute data. So we see in Iowa one of the largest increases in bike commuting. Something, again, you can talk about that showing demand. On the back, you've got both safety and spending. Look these over ahead of time. Think about what this says, how it can fit into your narrative about the need for a better biking and walking infrastructure, better planning. We'll also give you a list of your bicycle-friendly awards, bicycle-friendly communities, bicycle-friendly businesses, bicycle-friendly universities. Look for the ones in your community or in your district. And again, try to think about sort of what is the story I can tell with this? Seriously, a good 15, 20 minutes of research, you're going to feel more prepared and you're going to have a better meeting. So at the summit, we'll also give you time to prepare. On Sunday morning, we'll have a session. I'll talk through the bills that we're going to be lobbying on and what those asks are. On Monday afternoon at the summit, we'll have a how to lobby session. I'm going to bring in some of my cohorts who lobby. You can ask us questions. We can run through some role playing. And then after that, you'll have a chance to talk with the other people from your state to prep in those meetings. Throughout the summit, if you have a question about lobbying, if you have a question about the asks, look for me or look for Ken McLeod. We can help you. Most states have a state coordinator. They're the people that are setting up the meetings for you. They'll run the state delegation meeting. They'll have your schedule. You'll also get an app on your phone so you can look it up and see it there. They'll have the information packets, and it's a good chance to connect to the other people in your states, and they can help you do that. If you don't have a state coordinator, we'll have other advocates and league staff there to help you and to do those same things. Within your team, you want to talk beforehand. You want to talk about where you're going to meet before the meetings. I always suggest arriving outside the office a good 10 to 15 minutes early, just to, check in, go over your plan, get ready to implement it. It's a good time to agree on what your angle is going to be. What's the story that you're going to use to connect with that member's interests? And also be prepared that everyone has a 1 to 2 sentence introduction about who you are and why biking is important to you. Short and sweet. You also want to know before you go into the meeting who's going to lead the meeting, who's going to talk through each of the issues and make the ask, The ask being, will you co-sponsor? Will you say this is your priority for transportation? You should have someone assigned to take notes. Lots of times people ask the question, but then they don't remember the answer. So have someone take notes, who's going to bring the packets, and decide who's going to do the follow-up email. So what to expect when you get there. It should be a 15 to 30-minute friendly meeting. Staff will be in the room the whole time. The representative may not. So this is Senator Merkley walking into a meeting with bike advocates. So the advocates, the staffer had already started, was talking substance. Merkley came in, talked a little bit, and then left before the meeting ended. That happens a lot. Everyone's going to be in business attire. Be prepared if you have a really big group or it's a really busy day. That meeting may even happen in the hallway. You may look at the staffer and say, my God, they're 21 years old. Why are they sending me the intern? It may not be the intern, it may be the staffer. The Hill staff are generally young, but they're smart and they know their issues. They, if they say we have to meet in the hallway, they're not trying to be disrespectful. They just literally have a tiny cramped office and they may have a lot of meetings going on. In terms of conversation, there'll be a little bit of small talk, a little get to know you. That's good. You should be prepared that they're going to ask you a question about one of these bills that you can't answer. Happens all the time. I've been doing this for 15 years. It happens to me. And also be prepared that the staffer is not going to be able to give you a yes or a no most of the time. They're going to say, okay, thank you. Well, let me talk to the member and I'll get back to you. That is a completely acceptable answer. A staffer cannot speak for the member until they've talked with them. You'll make a policy ask. We'll give you, one of our asks might be the Bicycle Commuter Benefit Act of 2019. We're working to get it introduced right now. And we'll give you these fact sheets that will say what the bill is, what it does, why it matters, and then the ask, will you co-sponsor the Bicycle Commuter Act of 2019? So if you get in there and you sort of forget your talking points, they're all right here on your fact sheet. 3 rules of lobbying, the 3 things you want to remember: be polite, be prepared, be persistent. Some of the biggest pitfalls I see is that people go into meeting or they come out of the meeting, they said, oh, we had a great meeting. I'm like, oh, well, what did they say about the policy ask? They're like, oh, I don't remember. Not sure we got there. You want to keep the discussion focused on the topic. So you may care about a lot of different issues being discussed in Washington. I totally get that. But this meeting is with the transportation staffer on bicycling. So we want to stick on bicycling and stick on the asks that we have. Be supportive of their bicycling experience. Sometimes you might hear like, oh, I haven't been on a bike in 20 years. And then I got on a bike share and I was on the sidewalk, but it was fun, This is not the time to be like, oh, you shouldn't be on the sidewalk. It might be the time to be like, oh, you didn't feel safe riding on the road. That's why we need protected bike lanes. That's why we need better infrastructure so bicyclists feel safe riding on the roads. It's fair to say something about when they say, oh, I don't really remember. Say, you know what? There's a ton of bike education classes in our district. And that's really important to increasing safety. Always trying to bring it back to the legislation, and that can be helpful. So, things like, given your experience on the bike, you can understand why safe infrastructure can make a big difference. That's a good one, especially if it hasn't been, if they say something about biking that wasn't a positive experience. If it's going off topic, whether it's the staffer that's taking it off topic or a member of your group that's taking it off topic, really want to bring it back and say, wow, we really appreciate your time and we want to make sure we get to why we are here. Bring it back to the issues. A couple other pitfalls. Sometimes the meeting ends before you get to make the ask. You can avoid that by making sure your introductions are short and tight. You want to run a tight meeting. Sometimes these meetings are only going to be 15 minutes, so you got to make sure you have time to get to the ask. The other is be prepared to take the initiative and make that ask. Sometimes it's hard to put it into a direct question, but they're prepared for that. You should be prepared to make that question. Also, sometimes you leave the meeting without knowing the representative's position. Again, be prepared to listen. Sometimes what you learn from them on how they're thinking about biking is the most valuable thing you can get out of the meeting. It can be more valuable than making your case. And be prepared to make the ask. And as I said, the staffer may not always be able to say the member will support this or no, the member won't support this. That's okay as long as you follow up. A couple of questions I get. What if you're asked a question and you don't know the answer? Completely fine. Don't lie, don't guess. Just say, you know what? I don't know, but let me find out and get back to you. Then you can talk with me or talk with Ken. We'll help you find that answer, and then you can bring that answer back to them. And that's almost a better scenario because then you become a resource for them. You know, if you don't get an answer because the staffer's like, well, I got to talk to my boss, that's fine. You want to say things like, wow, I appreciate that you need to learn more. Or if they say, well, I need to learn more about the bill, you can say, I appreciate that. How can I help you learn more? Will you check in with the representative and let me know? Will you check in with the senator? Let me know where they are on this. And always, when should I follow up with you? Let them know that you're going to check in because that's going to make them more likely to have follow through. Again, if the senator comes in, says hello, takes a picture and leaves, you haven't had a chance to talk about policy with them, you can say something like, thank you so much for meeting with us. We'll talk through our ask with your staffer, and we look forward to hearing your position. Let them know that you know what you're there for, and you are going to make that ask. You know, if you get frustrated, you feel like you got into an argumentative meeting, this almost never happens, but I like to put this in here just in case. There's a lot of ways you can handle that. Slow down the conversation. Show that you're listening to them. You know, repeat what they said, repeat their statement. So you're saying we shouldn't invest in bicycling because bicyclists don't pay a gas tax. I disagree, and here's why. Because bicycling helps reduce congestion. You know, you can always ask questions. What other information could I supply that could possibly change your mind? Or who else could come talk with you that might make a difference? So if you feel like you're hitting that stone wall, these are some of the questions to ask to try to pry it open a little bit, to try to get sort of what that next step is. And if all else fails, just say, look, we can agree to disagree. However, this issue is important to me, and I came all the way to Washington to express that to my elected officials. If any of that happens, you have the chance to address it in your follow-up email to make that relationship stronger. Let me or let Ken know. Consider writing a blog or a newsletter or a letter to the editor, and then make sure to share that with the staffer. But remember, at all times, you want to be polite, prepared, and persistent. One of the questions I always get is, my member never votes the right way. Why should I even bother? Yeah, you know what? Those can be really tough meetings. You do want to look for common ground, and you do want to stay in touch with that staffer because you never know what's going to change in their life, in the member's life, that might open them up to something. Invite them to a local event. Sometimes seeing the support for a new trail, going to an open streets event, something like that. We have had members of Congress change their mind. They're not going to change their mind because you went to a meeting and you said the exact right sentence. If you're going to get someone to change their mind, it's going to be because you are persistent and polite, and you show them the evidence. It's also fair to share their, if they vote the wrong way on a bunch of things, to share that with your audience. If you can show that you speak not just for one person, but for an organization or a group of people, that makes you more powerful in that meeting. So, and again, follow up is the way to do that. Our short-term goal is to get an answer, to get them on the record on these issues. Will you co-sponsor? If you won't, fine, but I'm going to tell folks, right? Like, that's fine. And let us know. Or, wow, you're supportive. That's great. I want to tell all of my friends that you're going to be supportive with us. But the longer term goal is really to continue that relationship, to clarify any questions you have on where they stand, to answer any questions that they had, and to just keep making the ask. There's some research that what has been effective in changing legislators' minds is when the same people come back to them 8 to 10 times a year on the same ask. Again, we talked about local events. Here's two pictures. Eleanor Holmes Norton, my delegate from DC, is here at a groundbreaking for a trail. She's always been, like I said, she's always walked a ton. She walks for transportation. She walks for health. But when she goes to bike to work day or something like that, and she sees the crowd, it's really gotten her to be even more supportive of biking and walking. It's made her a leader. Now she's in a leadership position, so that's great. On the other, we have Mr. Bouchon from Indiana. He used to be on the transportation committee. He isn't anymore, but he was not supportive of federal funding for biking and walking at all. But the advocates invited him to a health event, a bike ride in support of a health event. He's a doctor. He went to that. He had a great time. He brought his family. It doesn't necessarily mean he voted for us, but there's a long spectrum between being a champion and then being an opponent. Even someone who's maybe not going to speak up against something, not going to introduce a bill against us, we can move them to not doing that. That can make a big difference. And those relationships matter too. Again, another thing that staffers watch are what's happening in your neighborhood newsletters, on your group organization websites, on Twitter, the sort of hits that they're getting. And so going home, talking about your meeting, talking about what happened, sharing that with a group of people in a polite and professional way is really going to make a difference. So if they're supportive, we thank Representative Smith for her time and steadfast support of biking as part of a multimodal transportation system. We look forward to working with her. Can't thank her enough. All of that, very helpful. They're non-committal. You want to sort of be clear about that and maybe put them on the hook to give an answer. We appreciate the time that Representative Smith spent with us and look forward to learning more about her position on multimodal transportation. Like, we didn't quite get that answer, but we want to. If you write that and it gets into a local paper or a newsletter, a blog, something like that, and you send it to a staffer, they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, maybe now we need to get a position. If the member disagrees, you can say, we appreciate the time Representative Smith spent with us. We look forward to continuing the debate on why bicycle infrastructure is important transportation investment and one that helps our local economy. All of that matters. Even if you meet with the staff, say, we met with the staff for Representative Smith. She was very gracious, but we disagree on the importance of bicycle infrastructure, and we want to make sure that her boss, the representative, knows this is important to her constituents. And again, you want to keep it going. Remember, stay in contact, become a resource. Once a month or so, you want to contact that staffer. Let them know of anything that's happening in your community around biking and walking in their district. If there's a local event, let them know about that. If there's a new trail coming in, any of that. If you just change policy at the state level or the city level, make them know about that. Become a resource for them so that if a bill comes up about bicycling or something comes up and they have a question about what it means to their district, that they're calling you to find out. That is a really successful relationship. if you get an alert from the league that says, please contact your member of Congress and say this, those alerts are helpful. We want to spread them. But if you have a relationship with the staffer, you can write a personal email to that staffer and say, hey, this is why I think it's important. Using your own words, that'll make a huge difference. It's important. And as always, come back to the Bike Summit. So what are the lobby asks? We expect to have one to get better transportation planning. Hopefully we'll have one on the Bike Commuter Benefit Act, and then we'll have one on transportation funding for the reauthorization bill. I'll be more certain of those next Monday, March 4th, and you can tune in to the next webinar on that, where we'll give those specific asks. Thanks for joining, and I look forward to seeing you at the summit.